You know, in the world of plants, there are very few that are as full of contradictions as this one. For centuries, it's been seen as both a sacred medicine and a deadly poison. So today, we're going to dive into the really fascinating, complex world of the Datura plant.
I mean, just take a look at this. It's a beautiful drawing, right? With its striking trumpet-shaped flowers, it's no wonder Datura has captivated people for ages. This is a plant with a long, storied history, and it's woven into the traditional practices of cultures all over the world. And that whole history brings us right to the central question, the real paradox of this plant. Is Datura a healer, or is it a poison? Well, the answer, as we're about to find out, isn't quite that simple.
In fact, modern science describes Datura as a double-edged sword. And we're not just talking about folklore here. This is a confirmed reality. The plant has huge pharmacological potential. I mean, a whole pharmacy of useful compounds. But it also carries some incredibly serious toxic risks.
This slide just lays it all out perfectly. You can see its dual nature right here in its life cycle. It goes from these leaves to this really elegant white flower, which kind of symbolizes its healing side. But then that flower gives way to this menacing, spiky seed pod, and that's where the most dangerous toxins are concentrated. It's like this fundamental conflict is built into every single part of the plant.
All right, so let's start with the good side. Let's explore the promise of Datura and try to understand why it's thought of as this powerful natural pharmacy.
For hundreds, and I mean hundreds of years, traditional medicine has turned to Datura. Healers have used its leaves, flowers, and roots to treat a massive range of problems. Everything from pain and wounds to asthma and skin issues. Its reputation as a healer is truly global.
And what's so fascinating is that modern science is actually backing up a lot of these ancient uses. Research has found a whole list of benefits, confirming its power for pain relief and as an anti-inflammatory. It's also a really potent antispasmodic, which explains exactly why it was traditionally used to calm the muscle contractions that can trigger a severe asthma attack.
So what's the secret ingredient here? Well, the power behind both the good and the bad comes from a group of potent natural chemicals called tropane alkaloids. You might have actually heard of some of them: atropine, scopolamine, and hyoscyamine. These are the key players, the chemicals responsible for pretty much all of Datura's dramatic effects.
But of course, for every promise, there's an equal and opposite peril. Now we have to look at the other, much darker side of the coin, Datura as a really deadly poison.
This quote from the research really gets to the absolute heart of the problem. The gap between a helpful dose and a harmful one is just so incredibly small that using Datura safely is, well, it's extremely difficult. We are talking about a razor-thin margin between something that helps you and something that could kill you.
Now, when someone crosses that line, it triggers a condition with a very serious clinical-sounding name, anticholinergic toxidrome. But let's break that down. It basically means the plant's alkaloids just go rogue. They start blocking essential communication lines in your nervous system. In short, they hijack your body's entire control system.
And this table shows you just how terrifying that hijacking can be. The poisoning is like a two-pronged attack. In the central nervous system, you get delirium, hallucinations, agitation, which can get as bad as seizures or a coma. And at the same time, the rest of the body is in crisis. We're talking dilated pupils, a dangerously fast heartbeat, and a soaring body temperature. It is a full system meltdown.
And here is the most critical point, and I really can't overstate this. The potency is dangerously unpredictable. The amount of those toxic alkaloids can vary wildly from one plant to the next, from a leaf to a seed, and even depending on the time of year. This is why there is absolutely no such thing as a safe traditional dose. Any unsupervised use is, quite literally, a life-threatening gamble.
So, we've got this incredible paradox, a plant that can heal and a plant that can kill. And that brings us to the really exciting part of this whole story, the future, and the scientific quest to, well, to tame nature.
The challenge for researchers today is pretty straightforward, but it's also incredibly complex. The question is, how can we scientifically separate the medicine from the poison? How do we harness all those amazing benefits while completely getting rid of the deadly risks?
So one of the most cutting-edge ideas is something called precision biosynthetic engineering. Let me break it down. Step 1. Scientists map out the exact chemical recipe the plant uses to make these compounds. Step 2, they use gene editing tools like CRISPR to go in and basically tweak that recipe. And what's the ultimate goal?
to engineer a whole new version of the Datura plant that only produces the helpful medicinal chemicals and to switch off its ability to make the poison altogether.
Another really futuristic strategy involves nanotechnology. So imagine creating these tiny, microscopic delivery drones, right? And they carry these precise, controlled doses of Datura's medicine through your body. So instead of one overwhelming flood of chemicals, these nanocarriers would release the medicine slowly over time. This would prevent that sudden toxic peak that makes the raw plant so incredibly dangerous.
Which brings us to our conclusion. The story of Datura, when you boil it all down, is really a story about a very, very delicate balance. You know, this plant is one of nature's most powerful reminders that immense value and extreme danger can be tightly wound together, existing side by side in the very same organism. The key isn't to just label it good or bad, but to really understand this duality and learn how to approach it with wisdom and, well, respect.
And that leaves us with a final, much bigger question to think about, doesn't it? The natural world is filled with this kind of raw power. So the great challenge for all of us moving forward is to figure out, when do we try to harness that power for our own benefit, and when is it just wiser to admire it and respect it from a safe distance?